I'm a no, because it's not working.
Oh, it's fine. I can see everything's working fine.
Oh, I took off the night. Tired. I'm at home tonight. Oh. Did you get my text Sunday?
Yeah, you're gonna have to remind me of what the text was. I got a lot of text.
Text you Sunday and told you I was real sick, and I was trying to do my work. So when I got to take the test, I really just marked anything on there. I knew the answer, but after I text you, soon as I text you, and I set my phone down, I threw up. I think I had a stomach bug or something, but it lasted the whole weekend. So I felt horrible the whole weekend. But that's what it was about.
Yeah, we got it pretty bad a couple of weeks ago in our house.
That's a bad feeling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, we'll start in just a few minutes, I guess.
This little thing we got. This little thing. What do we do with this? Are we supposed to use this too? It came with our book.
That is, yeah, that's a guide that can help you through the course. Why don't you give me a minute and I'll go grab mine really quick and we can talk about that tonight as well. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can, Patricia, it's 8:30. We can go ahead and get started. And I know you want to, we'll talk about this guide here. But let's start, if you don't mind. I'm going to start with the evaluation questions from last week. So I need to click this. And
can I retake all that?
unfortunately, you can't. I don't have a way to reset it. With the new platform, I don't have that ability to do that. You know, with the old system that we were using, it would be as simple as clicking a restart button, but not able to do that. So what we can do though is evaluate, you know, and just see if we go through these together and see how it went. Now, I haven't looked at these. It says great. So I'm timed out of it, so maybe we won't be able to see it.
You have a 0.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's try this again. Should be able to see this no matter what, but nope.
It won't show it to you.
Yeah. Let's try this again. Maybe there's more than one way. I'm not sure. Oh. Okay, so we're not going to be able to do that. Well, that is surprising. Nope. Okay, I won't be able to do that. Do you have any I know with all the sickness and everything you had in your house, any questions or anything left over from week 1 that we need to talk about before moving on to this week?
Let's see. No, because I had wrote all my stuff down.
Okay.
That I was doing.
Okay.
I just can't function right. Just hit me. I don't know.
Okay. But what I can do then, since you asked about it, and for anybody else who tunes in to watch this later, we can talk about this laminated card, the Survey of the Old Testament laminated sheet that came with your textbook. This is a really simple guide that kind of just really gives a brief overview and gives a whole lot of information in a small amount of space. And one of the things is this guy here, John Walton, he actually has his own Old Testament textbook, one that's different than than what we're using in this course. So really, this sheet was meant to be an addition or a companion to his textbook. Which we're not using, but that's okay. And the information, for how you can get a hold of that textbook is on the back of the card. But really handy maps on the front. You'll see these similar to the textbook that we have in chapter 2, where we're talking about geography, we're talking about landscape and time and space. And then as we get into the inside, really, there are some key geographical places, as well as basic terminology. My video is cutting in and out a little bit. Is everything okay for you?
It looks fine.
Okay. Okay, and you can hear me okay, that's good. And just basic terminology. So there's a glossary in here, just called key terms, and as well as then this running timetable at the bottom. Some of the things in the timetable are kind of interesting, but it's really, you almost have to add some things to it. For example, Abraham would be about the year 2000 BC, and he's not listed in here. David is listed right around 1000 BC, but as we've been talking about in Genesis and chapter 1 in the textbook, from Abraham is around the year 2000 BC. And then you get in later dates, like when we haven't covered it yet, but after David, the kingdom is divided after his son Solomon dies, and it becomes the northern kingdom Israel, southern kingdom of Judah in 931. And then from there on out, you see the temple is rebuilt in the year 515, and so on. So it's just a really simple timeline, but it is quite handy. The other part that's in here is something that we're talking a lot about in this class, and this is that third part called the storyline in the middle of the handout. The flow chart for the storyline, main events and sequence, as well as the plot line, which is point number 4 on the last page on the inside, identifying key moments or headings in the plot, in the story of the biblical text: creation, the fall, the flood, the Tower of Babel, covenant, Exodus from Egypt, the laws given, so on and so forth. So it lists those, and it does a really, really good job there. And then finally, the last piece, which takes up really a bulk of it, is just a basic summary of each book of the Old Testament. If you were wondering, what the purpose of Samuel is, well, you can just find that on the backside. Samuel's to tell the establishment of the monarchy or the kingship of Israel and how that came about, or pick any other book. And then just kind of again on and then the last piece of it, the very last page on the back, makes some connections then to the New Testament. There are thousands of connections between the Old and the New Testament, and so the author of Dr. Walton lists then just some key connections on here. Mostly, a lot of them are related to Jesus in the Old Testament, but so it's just really a simple tool to help understand if you get lost or confused, may be able to find some helpful information in here to help get you back on track if for some reason kind of get lost. I wish I had something like this when I was in school. So, all right, that's that. So this week, so how has the course been for you? What are you learning? What has been good for you?
What am I doing this week?
Oh, from anything that we've talked about, really. What's been good for you? What have you learned that, what's something that really has caught your attention or surprised you? Anything?
Really? I mean, I like reading the Bible, so nothing really.
Okay.
Be some crazy stuff you read in there. like about marrying when your husband died, you supposed to marry your brother, his brother, and stuff like. I don't agree with stuff like that, but
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
yeah. Um, it's very very different from the culture we live in.
This the discussion one. Could we get like an article out the newspaper? Because I was reading about the same thing that the discussion was talking about. It had something about it in the newspaper Monday.
Yeah.
Could I use something like that for that discussion?
Oh, is a source for your discussion
Mm,
posts?
it would be.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Um, it's that the the discussion question for this week is almost it's almost a little unfair because I've already read through some of the posts, and the reality is a lot of people aren't aware of what's going on, or they're not aware of the conflict or the history of the conflict, and not only are they not aware of it, but it's a very long and it's a very complicated history. And so to talk about to talk about Israel and Palestine today, and what are the connections that we're seeing, really, um, it, there's just so much. There's so much background, so much history, so much detail that it's not really fair,
No,
honestly.
you have to follow it from when it first started up to now to know what you would say on that discussion question. You can't just go on there and then be like, well, I feel like this, but you don't know what's going on at the same time. So
Yeah,
really, you even know what to, like when you got to reply to someone's post. You read their post, but you don't know what they talking about. So how would you reply to something like that?
yeah, it can be really tough. The best thing really is to ask questions if something is really unclear to you, to ask for more information. Say, hey, I just want to understand what you're saying a little bit better, but I'm a little bit confused. So tell me more about what you mean when you said this in your post, and then you can quote the part that's confusing to you, um, or part that you would just like to hear somebody talk more about. The other thing too is, I think I would focus on the discussion question. I would focus on the location of Israel, given the larger um, geography, or the larger part of the world that Israel is located in, and why that's significant. In the book, and I don't know if you've done the reading for this week.
I'm
Um,
not finished with it.
yeah, the book talks a lot about Israel being, after the people come out of Egypt and the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, and they're finally crossing into the land of Canaan. There, that area is like the crossroads of the ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go from Egypt east, or if you're coming from what would later become Europe, or in the time like ancient Greece, or from Rome, or and you want to go east to India or further east, you have to pass through Israel in some way, or shape or form. Oh, hello. That surprised me. Sorry. Hello. So welcome, Christine. Good to see you. Glad to have you. Thanks for tuning in. We're just talking about how centrally located Israel Palestine was, and why that's significant then. So that's really another piece of like how you could answer the question, is just why, how, or what is the significance of being at the center of then the middle, the known ancient world. Whereas if you want to get to Africa from the north, or if you want to go from Africa east or to the north, you're going to be passing through Israel. And so being a tiny piece of land, just a small part of real estate in this bigger world, God puts his people there to be his kingdom of priests, right? And this is coming straight from the book of Exodus. It's just a holy nation, a kingdom of priests, and to reflect him to everyone who then is passing through the ancient world, or the Mediterranean world at that time, right? So everyone who came through town or through their cities would know, or hopefully learn something about then the Lord God, and who was they represented him, right, to the rest of the world. So that's another way you could approach this question, as far as that discussion question goes for this week. Is just, man, the crossroads of the world, God's people are located. It's a land that was promised to them through their ancestor Abraham, and so there's really, there's a lot of ways you could tackle it if you didn't want to take too much of a current events approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? I know I kind of rambled a bit, but
No, it answered what I was thinking of.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yep. And then let me go to the second question for this week. Look at the timeline on page 48. Which period of biblical history do you know the most stories and names from? Which one feels the most distant to you? Which period seems like it will be the most interesting? Why do you think so? Okay, so there's a really interesting timeline in the textbook. I'm just right here, and of the things listed here, what are you most familiar with? You could share that. What are you most comfortable talking about? What is, what do you know the least about that's listed in here? Is it the United Monarchy, or the divided kingdoms, or the exile period, or even at the end of it, Second Temple Judaism, and what are you most interested in learning about, and why? So there's a pretty easy question, right? It's just, tell me what you're thinking, tell me what you want to learn, tell me what you already know. So not too hard.
No.
Yeah.
No, that one ain't too hard. I was looking at the timeline you had on there. Well, on that page. Let's see.
Yep.
I can't see, let me see. Applied one, because I ain't even looked at it yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Are the questions that's on the, and it's some more questions, essay questions at the end of the week.
Yeah, and so the application assignments are the same. It's the same kind of thing each week, and so there's another worksheet with questions for you to answer, and I'm trying to see them right now. Let me see if I can do that. It says that my internet connection is unstable. I don't know what that means, but here we go. And so what I can do is show you this. So application assignment number 1 is to answer these questions. Talk about the first biblical figure that Richter talks about in chapter 2 is Adam. And so this is kind of a tricky question. What years did Adam live? Be cautious about ascribing dates to events in which there's a lot of speculation around. We do know, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the laminated guide here, that Abraham is around the year 1000 BCE, and we know this. That's a matter of historical record. Now, Noah, going before Abraham to the days of Noah and the flood, you may be able to assign a time period to that, but then to go further back into the days of Adam and Eve is going to be a little bit trickier. And the author in the book talks about that, how many scholars try to date the beginning of time. In the Jewish tradition, they actually have, and so believe that the Earth is roughly 3,700 years old. That would be about what in Jewish tradition says Adam lived, somewhere in the time period of 3,700 BCE.
I know, because the book says October the 23rd, 404 BC.
Yeah, right. So somebody, long hundreds of years ago wanted to figure it out. A lot like trying to figure out when Jesus is coming back, right? Just in the opposite direction. How do genealogies function in the Old Testament? This is a question. All these questions you can find in chapter 2, answers to these questions in chapter 2. Is it a matter of keeping, what else is going on besides the naming, of fathers and sons, mostly? What other purpose could genealogy serve? Really, it's kind of a theological question. Really, is there something else that's being or trying to be communicated other than just simply a list of names? I know that in the New Testament that is the case with, like, Matthew, for example. Matthew includes key women in Jesus's lineage, which is very unusual. So what is Matthew saying? What is he trying to say about these women that are a part of Jesus's history? And it should then, when you encounter those kinds of names, it should drive you back then to the biblical text in the Old Testament to read their stories and figure out why they are listed, in the genealogy. Also, according to the author, what's the function of the flood narrative? Why is Abraham known as the father of the Jews? And about when did he live, which I've just told you that. After Abraham and before Moses, the Israelites end up living in Egypt. How did the Israelites end up in Egypt? You can read the end of Genesis and know the story of Joseph to know that. What major event in Israel's history happens under Moses's leadership? So here we're thinking 10 plagues, let my people go, crossing of the Red Sea into the wilderness. When did David become the king of Israel? So, and then who followed or who preceded David? So who came before David? And you read about 1 Samuel, the rise of the monarchy, Saul, then David, as well as there's a map here. And so just identify points A, B, and C on the map. And these are articulated in your textbook. Everything here follows really closely. So after Moses, Joshua took over leadership of Israel. Joshua led the nation to conquer Canaan. They divided up the land. Look at the figure 2.8 in the textbook. According to what did they divide up the land? And then let's see here, 15 questions, couple more. So what happens in 931 BC during the reign of Rehoboam that directs much of the rest of Israel's history? Describe the geography of the people of God following 931 BC. You can get in as much or as little detail as you like here. Just the key is just to write complete thoughts, and so what happens during the reign of Rehoboam in 931? And that is all in the text. That's again straight from the textbook. But 931, after Solomon dies, the kingdom is divided. 10 tribes to the north called Israel, and 2 in the south are known as Judah. Judah, the southern kingdom remains within the Davidic line. The descendants of David continue to reign on the throne in Jerusalem, while a whole bunch of other people fight for the northern kingdom. And so that's essentially what happens in 931. And then eventually the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom are conquered. First the northern kingdom is conquered by the Assyrians a couple of hundred years after 931 in 786, right? And you're not expected to remember the dates. But in about 786, 785, the Assyrians march in. They conquer the northern kingdom, take over Samaria and the 10 tribes in the north. And then about 200 years later, in 586 or thereabouts, King Nebuchadnezzar marches in from Babylon, conquers the Assyrians, takes over the entire land of Israel, and continues to deport Israelites out, takes them back into, of course, Babylon. And you can read the story of Daniel, right? And his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they're assimilated into Babylonian life and culture. And then eventually, after 70 years in Babylon, they're under the rule of a new king. They're allowed to return to Israel to rebuild the temple. And that's how we get the book of Ezra. Ezra talks a lot about that. So that's kind of a short summary of some key events there. And so we're just asking, what are the dates of these conquests of when the northern kingdom is conquered first, followed by the southern kingdom. And then what happens in 538 BC? This is where Jews, I've just mentioned, were taken away to live in Babylon in 538. You can read more about that and tell me about that. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what you discovered, because that's what I really like to hear. I like to hear what students are really learning and being challenged by, and not just the textbook reading, but in their Bible reading as well. And so, because that's why I'm here, to help enhance your learning and understanding of the biblical text and the story that the Old Testament is telling. And so, tell me what you learned. I love to know what you already know, but I really like to know what you learned. So that's that assignment. And then go back here to the course. The evaluation, again, multiple choice questions. I'm not going to click on it this time so I don't get timed out, but we can save that for the next live session. And then another written portion, some questions again from just like last week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's one question.
Just one?
I think
Yep.
so.
Okay. Yep. One question. Yep. And so what event took place on Mount Sinai that shaped the future of Israel? So that is this week. What do I need to cover? What am I missing? I'm still correcting week 1 application papers, but everybody's been doing a really nice job. I can't think of anything that specifically that needs to be addressed from week 1. So is there anything that anything else I need to cover with you, or you have any other questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. If I get a chance, I'll post this link for everyone to see. There's a there's a really nice website by a friend of mine who is a writer. She's an author and a Hebrew scholar, and her website's called Our Rabbi Jesus, which focuses on the Jewishness and the teachings of Jesus from a rabbi perspective. And in October of last year, she wrote this really good article, which I think you can see if I still have my screen up on there, called "Reading the Bible from a Weird Perspective." And this is a really helpful article written by someone who writes like a normal person. Just not, it's not technical. It's not too confusing or anything like that. And she talks about what a weird perspective is, and this is just an acronym. And it says, when you read the Bible, we read from a Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic perspective. And so the way we read the Bible, because of the culture that we live in today, is vastly different from the time of even the New Testament, but the Old Testament is even further away from how we live. And so we have to build a bridge then from today, 2015, almost 2016, United States of America. We have to begin to build a bridge then to the past, in a different culture, a different time, a different place. And so this article is really helpful, just how to read what a weird perspective is, and how it's different than from how the Bible was, from the context and the culture in which the Bible is set and the stories of the Bible are in. And so you can read this. I'm not going to go through it, but just really helpful for me when I first read this last year, and so I just share it with you as something to add. Hopefully not to fill your plate to overflowing, because I know how busy you guys all are. But just if you want to take the time to read the article, you can do that. So enough of that. All right. I think one thing I need to just kind of remind you is that this is the last week before Christmas break. So for you and for anyone who else is going to watch this later in the week, next week there's no class. The week after that is no class. We begin week 3 then on Monday, January 4th.
Not coming to class at now, just playing.
Yeah. So I'm going to take that time off and enjoy a little time off myself and spend time with my family and not worry about grading papers, and you won't have to worry about reading chapters and writing assignments. So enjoy that time. What any other things we need to talk about, or feeling pretty good about this week, the discussion, the assignments that are due?
You done talked about everything.
Okay. Christine, any questions from you? You want to chat? I don't know if you want to. You can unmute your microphone, or you can type something in the chat. If you don't have any questions, I'd be happy to pray for you, and we can wrap it up. But just let me know, Christine, if you have any questions. I'm gonna.
Okay. No questions. I don't have any questions.
Okay. Yeah, thankfully I can unmute you over here.
I'm glad, because I don't know what happened. It went blank. I'm like trying to get back and everything.
Really good. Okay. Well, hey, let me pray for you, and then we can well, it's after 9:00, so I can almost go to bed. All right.
Okay.
Gracious Heavenly Father, thanks for this day. Thanks for these ladies. Thanks for this class in Central Christian College, for the gift of an education. I know what it's like to be in their shoes, to be a husband, to be a father, and to go back to school and really just seeking out your leading through the process of taking classes and the coursework and trying to hold a job and juggle things at home. I've been there. I've done that. I've walked through that valley, but I'm just reminded and I remember that you were with me that whole way. And I pray that would be true for my friends in this class, that as they walk through this valley, and for some it's a valley, but others for it's a mountain, but just as they journey through their studies, course by course, day by day, week by week, and month by month, that you would be with them, leading them, clarifying the call to which you have placed upon them. And I pray, Father, that you would give them, by your Spirit's power, wisdom and discernment to hear your voice, to recognize your leading and your calling, and to follow you closely wherever you take them. And so I pray this week, Father, for as they prepare their papers and discussion threads, that you would give them clear minds and allow their thoughts to flow freely onto the computer, and look forward then next week to having a couple weeks just to rest, to take that Sabbath, to lean into you, knowing that you are God, we are not, and we can rest from writing papers and discussion threads, and from grading papers, and and all of that stuff, Lord. And just lean into you and rest in you. Find our rest and our peace in you for a couple of weeks. Invest in those people whom we love so dearly, and enjoy this Christmas and New Year's season. We love you so much, and our love for you pales in comparison for your great love for us. And so we give you thanks, we give you glory, we give you honor because you deserve it. We love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions later, just send me a message or find a way to get a hold of me. And
okay. Have a Merry Christmas.
Yes, you too. Merry Christmas. And to be chatting with you in the discussions.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.